Hi, my name is Lauren Davis. I'm Brad Feichnoff's associate photographer. I've been with the firm for about 11 years now. And although I do photograph for the firm, I also do retouching as well. So today I'm going to teach you kind of some basic architectural photography retouching tricks that we do in order to make our images look good. And also, more importantly, on how you can make your images look like they were photographed with a tilt shift lens whenever they may not have been, because it's totally acceptable if you all don't have access to tilt shift lenses. So we're going to start with a building that all of us are really familiar with here in Columbus, which is the Huntington Center. This building, as we know, is very tall. In fact, this image that I took right here was taken with a tilt shift lens. It was taken with our widest lens, which is the 17 millimeter. And I had to shoot it vertically because, I just couldn't get it all in otherwise. And I was actually standing all the way on the State House steps, hanging out with the state patrolmen, because of course they were curious. And, in order to capture this shot. However, I didn't like how tall and skinny this image was. In fact, I wanted it to have a little bit more meat on the left and the right. So although I was shooting with the tilt shift lens, I actually still had to angle my camera upwards to shoot it to shoot this shot horizontally. So what I did was actually took 3 different brackets and photographed the tippity top, the middle, and also the very bottom. And what I'm going to show you today is kind of how to stitch all 3 of these together. Now, if you're shooting with a fixed lens, you might not be able to do a stitch, which is fine. This is still something really important that you guys should know. The end result looks like this. So let's actually get started here. So I don't know if Brad mentioned this to you or not. We actually photograph in 7 frame brackets. Do apologize. We shoot everything from, the darks, so we get in these bright areas like what the Levesque would be, all the way to capture these shadow areas like the pillars. The Levesque's really blown out here, but we have the shadow areas. So altogether, it looks like this, which those are out of order. So let me fix that real quick. There we are. So we have, capturing the highlights over an 85, all the way to the lowlights in 91. So then what we do is we merge them together. I use a program called HDR Efex Pro. It's by the Neat Collection. And this is a program that does cost money. I do not expect you to go out and purchase this program. I don't know if CCAD has this on their computers. I find it a very useful program. I know not every retoucher uses it, however, but this is just the program that I use. So I've actually gone ahead and kind of merged all these images together really quick. But to show you the program, I can just do one super fast so that way you know. Prior to doing HDR Efex, what I like to do is make sure there's a few things in Adobe Camera Raw I like to do to these images first to make sure they're ready to go to be blended. So let's open up Adobe Camera Raw here. So Command R, as we all know from Bridge, I make sure I typically choose the base exposure. Sometimes that's the middle exposure. Sometimes that's the third run from the top. And here I've already set my custom temperature, custom tint. And then this is the most important, which I wanted to point out to you, is the, oh no, what happened? I turned the saturation down, unfortunately. There we go, is the optics. So remove chromatic aberration. Please make sure this is selected for all images. And as you know, if you select all, you can, when you hit remove chromatic aberration, it's going to adjust all of them. So once I make sure that is done, my color temp is spread across all 7 images rather, then I click the done button. And then from there, I actually apply it to my other brackets as well. So this middle bracket we have right here, and also this very bottom bracket that we have right there. So this will ensure that your images are able to be stitched together the most successfully. Now, I've already, like I said, I've already gone through and ran this, but I'll just show you this program really quickly. We're gonna start with the tippity top. That's typically how I like to do. And what you'll do is you'll go to Tools and then Google, because Google once owned HDR Efex Pro, and during that time you could actually get for free, which was awesome, but unfortunately they did sell the program, so I am sorry. But we'll go to Google and then merge to HDR Efex Pro 2. Then what comes up is the source files. Sometimes you can add other files, sometimes you can create them into a smart object. I don't like creating these into a smart object just yet. I like to save that for another moment. So then hit merge dialog, and this will just take a moment. Apparently a big moment. My computer's kind of bogged down because of the recording, and I've already done this a few times. Okay, there we go. And as you can see, another screen comes up that talks about alignment, ghost reduction, chromatic aberration. Because we already handled the chromatic aberration, I just keep that off. Ghost reduction, there's nothing really moving in these shots. There's clouds in the sky, but it wasn't a windy day, because I know this because I definitely flew the drone on this day. And so if there is cloud movement, it's very, very minimal. And the ghost reduction on this shot in particular doesn't really show anything. So I'm just going to keep it off, and then I'm going to hit create HDR. And it's just going to align everything. And then you have up here, so now we have all these options. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. So we have tone compression, tonality, color, selective adjustments, which I don't really get into in this first round, and then the finishing. So any graduated neutral density filters that you might need to put on. However, when you're doing a stitch, I wouldn't recommend that, because it will make things funky whenever you stitch it together. Now, I've already gone ahead and made a preset, which is over here. I have a ton of presets, mainly because I'm awful about deleting them and or exporting them for them to go away. But in a previous video version that I made for you, I actually already created one. So I'm just going to click on that, save us some time. And as you can see, it changed a lot of things. It changed the tone compression from being compressed, which yes, did bring in those shadow areas, but you can see it looks a little flat, and it definitely looks HDR'd. So I like to put it to be a bit more natural to the human eye. So it's at 77. The drama, I usually either go natural or deep to add a little more contrast. This one I did deep. And then I also messed with the highlights because the Leveque Tower is still pretty bright. And then open up the shadow areas a bit more. Down here, I also mess with the levels and curves, not the graduated neutral density filters, because that right now is on the top. And, if you do a stitch and all of your images are the same, you're gonna have this weird banding in the middle of your shot. So I like to keep that 0. And the same can be said for the bottom as well. We don't need to mess with that right now. That's for another shot. So we have all these settings. Let me just make sure that they're correct. And then we're gonna hit OK. So now what's gonna happen is it's gonna send this image to Photoshop. Now, as I mentioned, I've already run through this image once in a previous video I tried making for you all. So I actually have everything all stitched together. And one thing that I definitely want to point out, which, is in the previous, is in that other video, but I want to make sure I walk you through it too. If you do use a program like the HDR Efex Pro, it is actually going to give you a very large file, a file that is in 16-bit. Most programs don't enjoy 16-bit files. Most enjoy 8-bit. It's that classic 8-bit color mode that it definitely enjoys. So I actually already have an action set up where it converts the profile and everything for me right away. But because, I want to make sure that you understand, I'm going to walk you through each step. So, this image was shot in sRGB. I actually prefer to edit in Adobe RGB 98. So that is what I'm going to do first and foremost. I'm going to go to Edit, Convert to Profile, and then click Adobe RGB 1998. Make sure relative colorimetric is selected, and then also use black point compensation. In terms of which one is really best, I'm going to be quite honest, I'm not really sure. I know there's many different thought levels on this, and I just keep it on relative colorimetric. Also, in terms of, editing color-wise, a lot of retouchers like to use Pro Photo RGB, and that is fine. However, whenever you are giving your images to a client, most likely their system is going to convert it to sRGB or the Adobe RGB. So that's just why I like to work in Adobe RGB. Keep it nice and simple so that what you see is what the client is going to see as well. So I'm going to hit OK. As you can see in our history, it converts it to the profile. And then the next step is to turn off that 16-bit mode. So I'm going to go up to Image, Mode, and then just hit 8-bit channel. And it converts it right there. So now we are in 8-bit. Now, if you do this with layers already open, what's actually going to happen is Photoshop is going to merge those layers. So I like to knock this out of the park first and foremost. So that way, nothing is merged together. We're all good. So now we have this image that we are able to work on. Now, like I said, this is going to be a stitched image. I want to see, when you're shooting architectural, primarily you want to see the top of the building and the bottom of the building. It's very rare to not want to see the whole building, or at least your client at least getting one shot that is the whole building. And so that's why it's really important, to be able to, if you have to tilt the camera to get the whole building, that you're able to fix it. That being said, I already have these 3 layers, or these 3 images already merged together for us to be able to do the photo merge. Now, I'm just going to walk through this really quickly. And so basically, now you will see in this one, which unfortunately it does not stitch together well. We're going to go to, in order to stitch a file, you're going to go to File, Automate, Photo Merge. And then here we have this really great screen. You have the different layouts and you have source files. Because we're already using files that I've created and that are open currently, we're just going to hit Add Open Files. You're going to get, if you have any other files that you don't want open, or if you never saved those HDR merged files, you're going to get this warning sign. So documents must be saved before they can be merged. So, okay, yes, I understand that. So, not all of my my images up here are actually in this source file because they're not all saved, especially that merge that I just did. However, these 3, 85, 92, 99, they are the ones we want to merge. So we're actually going to hit base layer. We're going to hit remove. We don't want that. I either do auto or I actually hit perspective. I have found that perspective works a bit better in stitching. And so that's just why typically I like to use it. So once perspectives click, I just hit OK and then let Photoshop do its thing. And depending upon your computer speed, it can either go fast, it can go slow. You know, my computer right now is actually, my computer is a pretty hefty workhorse. However, I am bogging it down, so it is going a bit slow. I might have too many programs open. And of course, with the recording and Photoshop, it just bogs it down. So anywho, here we go. It saves it as, or it opens it up in a new file called Untitled Panorama. And since this is the second one we'll be doing, -2. This is not saved. So just so you know, this isn't saved. So be careful. Don't accidentally do a ton of work on it and then close Photoshop because you'll be super sad. So as you can see here, we have the 3 different layers that the photo merge created. We have the top, the middle, and the bottom. So photo merge, like if you look at this, this does not look like the cleanest cut, but somehow Photoshop has managed to make this look good. Now you'll also see I have this weird banding in my columns. This is because, admittedly, I did not do this, the color correction very well. And whenever it stitched it together, it definitely created some banding. So I am sorry this image is not super perfect. If I was doing this for a client, I would go back through and make sure everything was all kosher and all merging correctly. But unfortunately, just for this tutorial, we're just going to keep it as it is, roll with the punches as we go. So in order to make any edits to this file, specifically making sure that our building is no longer angled up, but actually straight up and down, because as you can see, we have some mean keystoning. And you can see that more specifically when we put our guides on it, which just kind of taking an educated guess of where the bottom of this building is. But you can see we got a lot of space in between here. So what we're going to do is we're going to merge these layers together so that way we have an editable layer. What I like to do, I love working in layers. So I like to make a copy, Command J, and then Command E to merge the selected layers together. From there, I like to do something that not all retouchers like to do. There are many different schools of thought on smart objects. I think they're fantastic, and I love working in them, especially whenever I am doing, I am retouching images that have a lot of components, a lot of people to drop into here and there, and you know, I need to do some perspective fixes, but I don't want to do it on every single layer that I'm dropping in. So I really, really, really enjoy working in smart objects. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to actually rename this to base layer. We'll call this base layer 1. And then I'm going to right click on it, and then I'm going to hit convert to smart object. So it is now a smart object. If you click on this object, smart object, it actually opens up a large document file, Photoshop file. And here you'll see it's just a single layer. It's also a .psb, which is how you know it's the smart object. And now I can make any edits on this image that I want, and they will actually be transferred over to the smart object. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just do a few things really quickly. I'm going to, let's see, I'm actually going, and like I said, I like to work in layers. So I'm going to open that up a bit or make a copy of that so I can open up these pillars and they not look so silly. So I'm going to grab my dodge tool, do midtones. I like to keep this really light. So I'm going to do 5, and then let's just do some painting. And I'm gonna get my Wacom tablet, sorry, out here really quickly. I call it that just to be funny, but I know that's not the real name all the time. Let's see here. Okay, got that figured out. So I got my Wacom tablet finally plugged in, and now we're just gonna do some light dodging. It's not gonna look like it's doing much, but I promise you it is. Let's actually do this for shadows. That's gonna help a bit. And we'll turn it up just to 10. Oh yeah, that really opened it up. Okay. There we go. That's great. Okay, so as you can see, we've opened it up quite a bit. It's, it's not the most perfect thing in the world, but it looks pretty good. So then we're gonna hit Command S to save. And what that does is that just saves this information of what we did to this smart object, and it transfers it over to your untitled panorama image. So as you can see in the history, it says update smart objects. And so if you click back and forth, you will see that that information has been transferred. Now, the great thing about this, so let's say I'm actually going to go, and this is kind of why I really wanted to show you the smart objects, is I'm going to go back into my base layer and I'm going to make just a funny little layer right here. Actually, we're going to make another layer, clone. I'm going to zoom in, and actually I'm going to get rid of these trash cans. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this really quick and dirty here. And I'm going to do it via content aware. I like to do content aware by using the patch tool to select, which is kind of funny because you don't actually need to do that. And I always feather at least one, and then Shift F5 or Command F5 if you're using a laptop, and then to do the content aware. So let's just see. Could be worse, could be better. Let's see, and now I use the patch tool to kind of like fix it up a bit. Ugh, not the best, let me tell you. Sorry about that, guys. But here we go. Okay, so that is not the greatest. However, this will help show you what I need to do. So let's say I got rid of those trash cans. It actually looks way better without them. And then I'm going to hit save. So that way this information is transferred over to the smart object. So here we go. So trash cans are now gone. Awesome. But we're still really, really tilted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start straightening our building. And one thing I also want to do is put a guideline up at the top here. As you can see, I am not as square as I thought I was, which, it's fine. I wasn't shooting tethered, and so I couldn't get it to tell, but I'm going to put a guide right there. And what I'm going to do is I am actually going to do, many people like to do perspective to start, but I actually like to just jump right into distort. So you go to edit, transform, and distort. Now, the fun thing with distort, you can do basically anything with this image. It gets really crazy. However, you don't want to go too crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start pulling bit by bit this image to get it straightened up here. So as you can see, you just kind of got to keep going back and forth a little bit. And I'm really pulling it right now. And you'll also see that the top of the building is getting further away from our guideline that we set up at the top. So we're actually kind of shrinking the Huntington Center. So we're going to fix that too. So don't worry. So let's see, this is, We're getting there. Okay, now let's pull up the Huntington Center so that way we can get it going here. There we go. So that feels pretty good. Now, as you can see here at the bottom, we're kind of got a little off course with the bottom. Now, granted, I did just kind of guesstimate where the bottom of that building was because these beautiful trees. But so what we're going to do is pull this in. Okay, so we're going to keep pulling it in. Let's see how our top's doing. Yeah, could be better, huh? So let's just pull up this corner. There we go. Pull that guy down a little. It's pretty close. It's not perfect, but you know, short of you guys watching me fight back and forth for, 5 minutes, looks pretty good. So to make sure that we save our transformation, hit enter, return, what have you, or click that little check mark up top. And there we go. So if you click on and off your layer, you'll see, oh, it goes, it straightens it up. It looks really, really good. I wouldn't worry about these pillars. What I found is that they actually taper up to the top. So if you're trying to straighten these pillars, you are going to be doing that for a long time because it won't happen. What's most important is the Huntington Center. So, in looking at this, our steps are kind of important too. And we do have, the steps look like they're turning. So I am going to fix that as well, because that's something, it's just a little bothersome that our baseline just doesn't look good. Now, anything that you do to this image, you got to make sure that your adjustments up top stay the same too. That is the one problem with distort, is that it, you make one adjustment and it will pull other things. So let's see here. That looks pretty good. I think that's as close as she's going to get for now. So there we are. Okay, wonderful. So now this goes back to why I like smart objects so much. So I'm looking at this, and yes, although with the trash cans gone, it looks great. However, I think I might want to put them back in. So I just did all that transformation work. So do I have to go back now to before I, updated the smart objects? I actually don't, which is something that I love, 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 love about smart objects. So really quick, I'm going to actually save my panorama. I'm going to save it in this lovely folder named CCAD tutorial, and where you can see all my videos that I tried making for today, but we're just going to save it right here. I'm going to rename this Huntington Center -2, and then hit save. Now, this is really important. Your TIFF options, because whenever you're doing architectural photography or any type of retouching photography, sometimes your files can get really big, especially if you work in TIFFs. So I like to keep my image compression at LZW. I believe that means lossless. And then the layer compression, I actually like to do zip. It takes a little bit more time to save the files. Sometimes you'll see it just kind of like sitting on 99% and you're just like, come on, move, move, move. However, it saves smaller file size. So I like to hit zip. As always, make sure you save the transparency because as you know, if you don't, you'll just have this ugly white background. So hit save transparency. Yes, you understand, not all programs support it, but you're in Photoshop and it does. So when I hit, make sure that's clicked and then hit OK, including layers will increase file size. Yep, I know that. That's why I have my layer compression on, zip and hit OK. So as you can see up here, it's saving. So see, it's gets a little hung up on those in the 90s, which is expected whenever you're doing the zip file size.